Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. It's just me and Alfie again. You keep getting left behind by other two so-called friends who just can't be bothered with us. But that's okay. Right, Alfie?
I'm in the room, you dick.
Yeah, sometimes when the wind is still and the night is full and everything is just right, they can still hear their voices. But
We're
to fix
right
that,
here!
we've gathered the Dragon Balls, and now Shenron, grant my wish. Bring forth two geekiest of gentlemen to help us make this series the strongest in the multiverse. Your wish is granted.
What? Is that Steve Bexley and that Matt kid?
Yeah.
Why did you
What?
make
I
me
don't-
leave my bed?
this is-
It's
yeah.
8:30 at night. How do people stay awake?
I was in the middle of stuff, man.
Explains the lack
Stuff,
of pants. Anyway,
I thought you were married. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, it's good to have you guys back. I got a shit post, man. I gotta blow you shit. It's fine.
That's fair.
You'll sit there and you'll take it. I don't care if it's fair.
All night.
You'll take it regardless. Anyway, so Alfie picked our topic this week because again, no one was there to pick a different one.
I'm sorry. Don't be mad.
It's fine. I'm just blowing you shit. I just have fun. Anyway, so Alfie, what are we talking about tonight?
today we're talking about, again, in the last episode, I had a little bit of trouble getting this, but I think I've just landed on character attributes. And what I mean by this specifically, just to get the ball rolling, is so we know the Flash is fast. That is an integral part of that character. But the Flash being fast is what we tell stories about. It informs what his villains have to do. It informs what the art looks like. It informs how the character is meant to be portrayed, and informs his personality, etc., etc., etc. This can extend to Superman being strong, or Mario being Italian, I guess. Like it's something that can expand out and kind of go into, okay, so what is just something that is in this adaptation versus what is something that is a fundamental truth. So kind of this can go in a bunch of different ways and stuff, but something that I'm curious about is like, what happens to this character if you take this away? Do they stop being this character? Is this just something that if this aspect is missing from them, are they not this person anymore?
Gotcha. That is... I mean, that's definitely interesting. I mean, because there have been so many stories where, Superman, he's strong and he's got all of his powers, but also a lot of what makes Superman is the way he was raised, that he's Clark Kent first and foremost. And there are no shortage of stories where it is definitely Kal-El, but he's a different character. You have Gods and Monsters, you've got Superman Red Sun, and it's like, are those still Superman, or have they gotten far enough away that they are... is that kind of what you're getting at, more or less?
Yeah, kind of, but also the example that started this train of thought, which I saw on Twitter, was talking about how Cassandra Cain, despite being known in the Bat family as the one that is good at fighting, as the only, kind of the distinction for her, primarily at least, that's the shorthand for her, always losing fights. Like, and
It's the Worf effect, man.
and
Worf had the flu.
Yeah, why does that happen? You know, like why do characters like that not get those things, or why do we choose to lean into with certain others, and so forth and so forth? Like, again, for Steve's thing, like, why did we decide that Tim Drake is now the detective one? Like, what about that made that happen, and why did we do it?
Because somewhere in one panel of, like, one Batman comic, one writer was like, I'm gonna have Batman say that Tim Drake's a better detective than him, and then the fan base never let it go.
Actually, it was a room of 4 writers who decided this and plotted it out over the course of several years.
Sure, I'm gonna go with the one panel, like one offhanded little mention, and then... No, you're right. It is. There was clearly more thought put into it, but it's just so funny that it's like, it's so held on to, and it's funny because people will give these characters these things that are considered like defining, and I think we as fans get very attached to, like, that's the thing I like about the character, and then we get really bothered. Oh, someone left. Someone's back. We get really bothered by that thing getting disrupted, and I used to get, like, really particular about things people did with the Joker, for example. Like, I'll say this till my dying breath: Joker by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. Amazing art, absolutely terrible Joker story. Just hate it. It does not comprehend the character, and I think that's why is we feel that these particular things, these checklists of attributes, define and show a comprehension and level of respect to the character. Because when you're a fan reading something and someone comes along who isn't a fan of that character and just utilizes them for their story in a way that negates or diminishes, like, a key attribute of the character, then it really, really bothers you. Like, I think we can all accept, like, a time where our favorite character may be featured in a story, but they're not the biggest deal. Like, I love the Riddler, and he shows up in a lot of Batman stories, but he's never really, like, he's got very few, like, really good central focused Batman stories. And he's usually mostly there for, like, a gag or something, or like, as just set up, or to try to establish something. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you write a Batman story and you make, like, the Riddler, like, an idiot, like, if someone figures something out and, like, makes the Riddler look stupid for it, then I start to get more annoyed, because I'm like, well, it's one thing if you need to use him for your purpose. It's another thing if you're using him to, like, diminish him and hype up your other character. You know, that's something that I feel can be annoying. But then, sorry, I want to finish this one point real quick. But then sometimes it's really fun to take, like, those quote unquote key attributes that seem like integral to the character, and then purposely write the character without it. Funny enough, one of the best examples I've seen of this was a fan film did a Batman story, and the premise of their film was just Bruce Wayne's parents died without a penny to their name. And I love it. It's such a cool thing to, like, okay, so what if Bruce Wayne was poor? Is the notion of it, because we think of Batman as, like, his wealth, his affluence as such a huge part of his character. So what happens if you do the same story, but you take that away? And funny enough, he ended up, like, literally carrying around a bat. I thought it was great. That's how they got to the name without the bat imagery. It was kind of fun. But yeah, I don't know. I find stuff like that to be interesting, maybe more just from, like, a writing challenge perspective, but it's always cool to see that.
I mean, I think it kind of, unlike, like, with Cassandra Cain, like, if you're telling a story that is about Cassandra Cain, it almost makes sense for it to be a story where she gets beaten in combat, because she's the character who's going to care about that. Like that's the thing that is going to potentially challenge her a lot more than it will the other characters. So like, and it's also very easy shorthand. Like if you have a character who is established as being extremely good at something, and then you introduce a new character who's able to surpass them, it's just very easy and sometimes lazy shorthand to establish how credible of like a threat this antagonist could be. But the more you do that kind of stuff, the less impactful it becomes. I mean, the only reason I think Doomsday is cool is because I like the idea of this force of nature that's able to actually beat Superman, who is known for being like completely unbeatable. But the more you use him and the more you do that, the less impactful those stories become. So like the more you try to subvert what your character is known for, I feel like the less impactful it becomes when you do it.
I think the other thing that sort of ties into that is when you start treating characters as just fodder for that kind of shorthand, and they don't have any sort of backing or anything else to sort of support them in those moments, it gets really, really hard to justify those choices. So like it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to do kind of like they're doing right now in all the Batman books. Bruce Wayne is poor and he doesn't have the manor anymore, and Alfred's gone, and we're going to take away all of those typical Batcave, Wayne Manor wealth, solve all your problems, and call Alfred to patch you up trappings of Batman, and then see what it does to the story. And if you don't like that, then you have 80 years worth of Batman comics that have ebbed and flowed doing the thing you liked. But you bring up Cassandra Cain or Tim Drake or any of these other characters, and you have like one era where they were introduced, where all of this stuff was relevant, and then basically never again. And so they've basically become nothing but reduced to the shorthand of these other things, where Cassandra's really good at fighting, so we're going to introduce a character that can beat her in a fight. Or Tim Drake is really smart, so we're going to introduce a villain that's super smart and Tim Drake can't figure out what he does. And so you do that enough times, and you don't have an option of finding any other Tim Drake book or any other Cassandra Cain book where she's not that or he's not that. And it gets kind of frustrating, and I think people learn to take it more personally that way. Well, like, I hate Tinian Batman. I think it's terrible Batman. But I've got Batcat, you know? Like, I've got other things that I can read. But where am I going to go if I don't like the way Tim Drake's being used in Batman Urban Legends right now? Basically nowhere.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things of like the degree of it, because like with storytelling and stuff, I think The Flash is a good example that I keep coming back to, but like there's a reason why like a lot of the Flash's recent villains are speedsters, is because when you have a character like the Flash, who is on the tagline the fastest man alive, the inherent desire is to be like, no, he's not. Look at this. Because that's the most shocking thing you could do with that character, is being like, that's not true. That's here is someone who is faster, kind of, and then that person overcomes it. It's like the Dragon Ball thing. Son Goku is the strongest at the end of the arc. Oh wait, no, he's not. He's it's that cycle, and especially for ongoing stories, you do need that. The difference becomes in how we treat that. Because Matt, you brought up the good thing of like, well, yeah, Cassandra should lose a fight because she's the one who will care about that, and that will be a journey for her. And then will she get a rematch? Will she have to accept that she can't be the best? Like, where do you take that character? The problem arises is when none of that happens. It's when we just
someone being introduced to beat Cassandra, and then someone else beating that character as opposed to Cassandra.
And then we never go back to that. We just move on. Like we just that is just a scene that happens, and then we never address it. It's part of someone else's story. And again, that works fine, but like, say, how weird would it feel if like Superman just said, sorry guys, this one's too heavy for me to lift. You're gonna die. Like I can't hold this. It's just this like part of the fantasy of that character is like it tied to the super strength almost specifically, because like when Superman isn't faster than someone, it's not shocking. It's like, okay, so this person's fast because Superman's fast, but the speed isn't part of the appeal of Superman in the same way that it is for someone like the Flash or Sonic the Hedgehog or Speedy Gonzales or whatever. Like, it's not his thing. The strength is more the thing. The idea of Superman being able to not beat someone up, I think, is fine. The thing that becomes an issue, I feel like, is when Superman is portrayed as unable to do a strong thing to save someone, and then that person dies. Like, I guess this is a speed thing, but I think the problem is still the same. That scene in For Tomorrow, where Superman is like dashing to save the people from like a flurry of bullets, and he's not fast enough to get there in time. That's something which I don't think has no argument for it. I think you can make an argument for that scene, but it annoys me in a different way than like when Superman is unable to save people. That specifically as like a failing of his power set, I think is kind of missing the point of the character. But again, it's very subjective and it's very case by case.
Well, I also think that like you mentioned Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball's like, you're right that like, and maybe they do, I don't know, I'm not in the Dragon Ball fandom, but like no one seems to complain when Goku beats Cell, but then but over here now we got Majin Buu and Goku's getting his ass kicked again, because like it's a huge universe that's part of it. Like from get-go, this DBZ has taken place on this massive colossal stage where there's always people coming from different planets and galaxies or whatever the fuck. When you get to something that's vaguely more grounded, like Gotham, it does suddenly become strange when you start seeing like trained from birth assassin after trained from birth assassin, and it gets to the point where so many characters share these similar, like, they were trained from birth to be an ultimate weapon and they can take on, and it's like there's like 7 of these now. How many of them could there possibly
It reminds me of like my fucking joke about when fucking Snyder was writing the Court of Owls, and like fucking Court of Owls and Black Glove, and there's like the Crime Bible and like 3 other fucking secret societies that have existed in Gotham for decades, and it's just like, who's in them? Do multiple people like share the group? Like, does someone show up to their fucking Black Glove meeting wearing a Court of Owls mask and go, oh shit, sorry, wrong club? Like,
and I just think that's part of the problem when you have a character who part of what makes them interesting is just the concept and their backstory. Someone like Cassandra Cain, who that is her thing. She was trained as a weapon. She was raised to be an assassin. She was raised to be a living weapon. If we start grafting elements of that story and copy pasting it and filing off the serial numbers and putting it onto different characters, then you start to lose some of what makes her unique. You start to lose some of that, and it just gets too easy to just have this clone of like knockoff characters. And I'm not necessarily that's happening to like an absurd degree, but I think that like with Dragon Ball, you can get away with constantly introducing new, more powerful characters because they're all coming from different fucking places in the universe. But when you have a slightly smaller scale universe like Gotham, like, well, then suddenly that actually becomes a logistical thing. Like, how many of these people can there be?
Gotham in particular is a really good example of this, because we were just talking about this earlier today, but the Bat family is way too big. Like, half of them just need to die. I just need Joker to take a crowbar to, like, half of them for, like, a month straight at this point, because there's too fucking many of them. But, like, you get to this point where, like, okay, Cassandra Cain can't do anything, and we only use her for shorthand to introduce something else for someone else to deal with. Jason Todd has a story going on right now, but the way we're writing him is antithetical to how we've been writing Huntress, so Huntress is now just discount Jason Todd. Tim Drake can only do certain things, so we can only use him in either a side character in the Nightwing book or as a side character as a backup feature to Urban Legends. Stephanie Brown is alive, but has had nothing to do in like 10 years, but we also just can't kill her off because we revived her because people were mad that we killed her off. And so all of these characters who have
the best thing Stephanie Brown ever did was die.
And uses and histories and fan bases can do things, but because there's just so fucking many of them all the time, those attributes are becoming less and less unique. And, I mean, funny enough, this problem goes back to The Flash, because this is a very similar situation, except more exaggerated. where the Flash family is like 10 people that all just have super speed. But the trick that Flash is able to pull is that Flash has always been very good about writing the Flash family and giving each speedster their own distinct personality and their own distinct dynamics with each other. We have not mastered that when it comes to like most other comic book side characters, particularly the Bat family. And so like when we think about like character attributes, I don't think we would, even in a current context, be as harping on a certain character's ability to do a thing if they weren't so consistently reduced to only that thing all the time. Like, I don't think Batman being a master detective, Batman being a master hand-to-hand combatant, being rich, like, you can, like, name drop 10 things Batman is, but, like, any one of those things does not, in my mind, create the necessary condition for having Batman. But when you think about, like, Cassandra Cain or Tim Drake, just because those are the examples we keep throwing out, that's just how we talk about them. We're like, Cassandra Cain's one thing is that she can fight. Tim Drake's one thing is that he's a master detective. But you look at like even just like one generation removed from that, and Dick Grayson isn't reducible to that at all. Like you can try to sum him up in one sentence, but he's just as multifaceted as Batman is. And that's partly because we let him do other things and have a role. But because there's just too many fucking characters running around, the only thing we can do at this point is just kind of color code them with attributes as opposed to giving them things to do.
We do it. I mean, the writers do it to themselves. What's that fucking like Batman Eternal panel where he's like, Jason does what Batman can't when Gotham needs it, and Tim is the smartest. I'm just like, they fucking do it to themselves.
Well, and that's the writers being
Cue
like,
the
"There's
Tom
so
King
many of
crisis,
them, and now I need a
Heroes in
reason for all
Crisis
of them to
page.
be here."
Oh yeah, the Heroes in
cute
Crisis
the
bit with all the
Crisis
Robins.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, Tim's the cute one, and they keep going through it, and like, man, yep. Should have killed a Robin in Heroes in Crisis. That would have pissed people off. That would have made that book like fucking bestseller, like live on forever.
I mean,
shit. Damn it, Tom King, you missed the opportunity. You know how much I would be here for Wally West fucking vibrating his hand right through Tim Drake's stupid brain.
Honestly, at this point, it's a mercy killing. My boy's dead.
I mean, that's like the thing that like.
You know what I want though, Steve? Just for me, I want like in the middle of the vibration, I want Tim to go, "Oh, Wally, you've cleared it all up for me. I realize now I'm gay," and then Wally just keeps doing it, and then Tim Drake dies.
For my birthday, Ian is going to commission Alfie to make fan art of Wally West murdering Tim Drake and email it to me.
Send that to my man. Being like, you guys thought you had it bad. What? Imagine if you did this.
Lost Heroes in Crisis panel will be a 9-panel grid.
We just get a single Twitter notification at the exact same moment for all three of us, which is like, Dan DiDio followed you.
It's so funny because I understand that people get attached to certain characters and so they want to see them again, but it's so fucking weird to me. I mean, like, I'm rewatching Game of Thrones right now, and like, I would never campaign to have Robb Stark brought back to life because I don't give a fuck. He served his purpose and died. Characters who lived to season 8, like Tyrion, end up a shadow of their former selves, and that's all that's happened to Stephanie Brown and to Cassandra Cain. So it's just it's baffling to me.
Best thing Stephanie Brown ever did was die.
Yeah, I mean, like legit.
Like, say what you will about war games being like sexist or poorly planned out or what the fuck ever. Best thing that could have happened to that character was staying dead. Well, and instead, we got a disappointing resurrection, and now she's done nothing of value ever since. Even Grant Morrison tried to use her and was like, I don't know, she's in England, I guess.
We just have to accept that some characters, that is going to be their ultimate destiny, and that is sometimes where they're best used. The only reason I'm okay with Jason Todd is because more so the movie.
Like,
than
he
the
comes
book.
back and he does something different,
like,
right?
Well, it felt like there was. It felt like we had a story to tell. Like, it felt like there was a reason to bring him back. Like, there was like, we're not just going to bring him back because we know people like him. We're going to bring him back because we realize that there is something interesting we can say about that. Whereas, like, a lot of characters just get brought back because they're like, but readers want this character again, so we're going to bring them back. And and that gets really frustrating because then they're just they're just being a stereotype of themselves, and nothing interesting gets done with them, and they might as well not be there.
I think that's a really good point, and it's just so weird because comic fans can be so fickle about things like this, and I think, you know, any media, but I think comics are unique for this of trying to define a thing, because like the Flash kind of needs to be the fastest, right? Like if you do the Flash Superman race and Superman outraces the Flash, then there's like almost no point to that character. He needs that thing. And so like when you have these big universes like comics do, you kind of need these attributes to give your character like that defining feature. Like if I say like, okay, I want to read, you know, really cool martial arts comic character, who do I go to? You know, your answer should be like Cassandra Cain or Iron Fist or something like that. Like they are the martial artists, they're the best in their universe kind of thing. If I go read it and then like they're just constantly getting their ass kicked, it's gonna kind of let me down though, isn't it? Oh yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It is fascinating to look into.
And I think what part of that might come as well is like the reluctance for. And it's funny because the New 52 was trending a little bit ago, and like it's like, to its credit, this is the last time comics tried this and they gave up. To do these different things properly, and the reason why like Goku works when he loses a fight, but like even if no one ever questions his competency, like everyone still thinks Goku is like the guy kind of thing, is because the story is about that. Because the story isn't a superhero comic, the story is a action comedy. Like that's the story. So it's an action series first and foremost. It's not about solving crime or anything like that. The problem with superhero comics is they've really kind of, since New 52 was the last time, settled into just thinking that superhero comics is a genre of itself. Like the Flash, to delve into speed as the primary thing, can't be in the same mold as Spider-Man, like, because that adventure format doesn't work with a character that's fast. To do that properly, you need to make that like a sci-fi high concept kind of book. Cassandra Cain doesn't work in the Batman mode as the gritty noir detective. She needs to be the Bruce Lee. Like, she needs to be that she can be in darker places and stuff, but the idea should be about the combat and the skill being used. Different genres of movies and TV shows need to be more adopted into comics to get these characters' attributes to kind of flourish in the same way that something like Dragon Ball does. Because then it's not about a superheroic character whose one attribute is this that makes them different from the others. It's like we've gone back to the Silver Age almost, where the only defining difference between the books is their power set.
Yeah, when like everyone was written exactly the same.
We haven't got that
Silver
far.
Age Justice League is just the fucking worst.
Yeah, but like we haven't gone that far, but it's just like the case of, because everyone's in the same mold and no one's wanting to try to just do a book about, alright, so if Tim Drake is the detective, he just needs to be that. Like, we just need to make basically Sherlock Holmes in Gotham. Like, but we don't do that because he still needs to be a action character in a monthly comic book series who shows up and says the quips and stuff. So like, there's a reluctance to lean into it harder. So that's probably why it also feels hollow, is because we don't want to go all the way in the same thing that Dragon Ball is just about fighting with these comic book characters.
Yeah, and I mean it's also not helped by like the fact that you have like these big event things in books that kind of force a character to just be doing their one thing in order to like stand out. Like, not even event books, but like team books kind of require that. Like, it's hard to do like a big Justice League run where the fucking roster has to switch out every 3 issues and give these characters the time and weight to really have any kind of arc, especially if you're not in communication with whoever's writing them in their solo book at the time. And you can get like really inconsistent shit. It's quite amusing, I guess, is my point there. Because yeah, like even Morrison, who's, you know, everyone on the show loves Grant Morrison, and if you don't, then you're not allowed to be on this show. But even Morrison has talked about how, like, writing Justice League, you know, they put Superman in there, but they're not necessarily writing Superman on the same level that they do when they're writing like All-Star or a solo Superman thing. They kind of step back the character's voice and do a more stripped down version of them. Not that it's not still Superman, but it's more in line with, here are your check boxes for writing Superman, as opposed to Superman. here's a take on Superman. And you know, I will say I think this is more of a DC thing than it is a Marvel thing. I think that this problem of just going to the attributes, just going to the check boxes, happens a bit more in DC than it does in Marvel.
I mean,
because my reasoning for that is, anytime I read Marvel, the characters are never where I think they should be, because people are just doing shit with them that I don't like.
I mean, you look at like, when you look at like DC and you look at characters that are more easily boiled down to like a single attribute than others, how often are their main antagonists just that same attribute but evil? Like Flash has, you know, Godspeed and Professor Zoom and Reverse Flash, whatever, and then like Green Arrow, like he's got Merlin and he's got Komodo, and like you know, Kill Machine is a great run, it's a good story, but like, how many like dark archers do we need our archer character to go up against? How many
good archers are, like, who is spending this much time on archery? Why isn't Green Arrow fighting a sniper?
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like, it seems like in a lot of ways, because that's the interesting story. It's like Green Arrow is the best archer in DC. So what happens when he goes up against fucking a better archer? Like that's it's the exact same reason you do that with Cassandra Cain, with her fighting people who are better than her. It's that same thing. It's shorthand to establish how much of a threat they are, and of course with like Kill Machine they actually deal with it, but like it seems like the more easy it is to boil down a character to a set of attributes or even a gimmick, then the easier it is for us to just take that gimmick, apply it to their bad guy, and then boom, that's their main antagonist now.
And again, I feel like that is still somewhat like a more modern problem, and I think Ian's right, it is a more sort of DC problem than it is anything else, because like Green Arrow has way too many archer bad guys, but he's got a lot of other bad guys that have not shown up in like over 2 decades at this point. I mean, he doesn't even have a book right now, but like Green Arrow has like a pretty comparable rogues gallery to a lot of DC's best characters, but none of them ever fucking show up. Like his arch nemesis is Count Vertigo, whose whole gimmick is that he messes with your equilibrium so you can't shoot arrows. But like, where the hell has he been lately, you know? And it's strange, because I feel like the harping on the one attribute thing, I think, becomes more and more important when there's just an oversaturatedness of certain kinds of superhero characters running around, where like on paper it seems like they're all carbon copies of themselves, and so we need to like focus on the one thing that makes them different. So like Green Arrow is a rich white dude who had one bad day and decides to become a superhero. And like for the longest time,
the worst thing he could be.
Rip off, you know, like he had the Arrow Cave and the Arrow Plane and all of that shit. But we made him his own character, and we kind of Marvelified him in the 70s and 80s, and now we've kind of gone back to the same the more simplified take in the Silver Age of like, well, we have Batman for most of these things, so what's the one thing Green Arrow is that Batman isn't? Well, he's an archer.
Leftist.
I just think so hard about the fact that like You go ahead. I think so hard about the fact that, like, so the Nolan movies are popular, and the CW decides, okay, let's do like a Batman thing where it's really stripped down and it's you know gritty and kind of realistic and grounded in the real world, and we're gonna do it with a character who's pretty Batman-like. Who's a character we could use? Oh yeah, Green Arrow. Okay, yeah, we can do that. And like, you know, Count Vertigo. How do we justify that? Well, they call him the Count because he's got this drug called Vertigo that has like 2 needles, and so it looks like vampire teeth. Like, just going like fucking miles for the justification on that one. But like they do that. They spin out that universe, and then they're like, okay, let's make a spin-off series for Arrow. Okay, cool. What characters are we gonna use next? What other like grounded DC properties can we do? Let's do the Flash. The guy who runs at super faster than light speeds and whose arch nemesis is a talking telepathic gorilla? You want to make that your spin-off for your realistic Green Arrow show? I think about that a lot, man.
I mean, don't forget their next 2 spin-offs were basically a Team Doctor Who show, Constantine, and Supergirl.
I just think it's amusing that we have this like domino effect of like CW has a shitty TV show about Clark Kent, and then it goes all the way to the last domino, which is CW has a really good show about Superman and Lois. Like, this is the fucking domino effect that goes.
It's absurd.
The
how
more
good
things change, the more they become the same.
Exactly, it's so good.
But I think that's interesting because, like, legitimately though, on the Green Arrow thing, right? Because the reasoning for that is like how many Batman attributes we can take before we just make it Batman. You know, like it's as a show, the idea of using Green Arrow is that he's so close to Batman, and you can twist him even more to just be right on the edge, where the only difference is effectively the costume and the use of arrows kind of thing. And even then, Batman's a pretty fucking good archer as well. Like, I imagine if he really wanted to in an archery competition, he'd rig it so he actually would be Oliver Queen because he'd cheat. like that would set fucking the internet on fire.
That's a fucking brave and the bold move right there.
Exactly. But like that, the reason why that is, and I think why Arrow still people say and like joke about it, and we make fun of it because it is so close to Batman, but it's still not really Batman because there is that inherent kind of, and the reason why I feel like confident in saying this is fucking Tom King made an entire run about it, of like the real thing that makes Bruce Wayne Batman as consistent through every single iteration that we call Batman is that he turns trauma into willpower. Like he had something bad happen to him, and then he turned it into something positive, or he turned it into like rage, or like he transformed it into thing. Like that, above all else, is the Batman-ness, and obviously the Bat. But like that's like Adam West has that, Ben Affleck has that, Christian Bale has that, Brave and the Bold has that, Batman Beyond has that. Like every Batman thing. And why I think that becomes important is because when you do start telling these stories, I think it's your job as a writer to kind of pick your battles, you know? Like, all right, what do I value most about this character? So, like, say for me, for Superman, it's like, all right, Superman will always do the impossible to save someone. All right, so does that mean, as a writer, what does that limit me to do? It's like, okay, so that means if I want Superman to lose a fight, I can't have someone be in danger that's not him. Like, he can't be trying to do it to directly save someone, like, or it can't lead to a thing that will forever be on his consciousness fault. That's just this is the rule set I've made for myself to write this, and I'm taking that directly from Grant Morrison, who said that. But like, I feel like the good writers who know how to do it properly break it down like that. I feel like Batman. All right, Batman is a character who can plan for everything. What's the one thing he can't plan for? Being happy, because that breaks the engine. That's not the code for Batman. So how does Bane beat him in the Batcat thing? All right, we give him Catwoman, like that. We make him happy, kind of thing. Looking at the attributes that way, I think, is what really elevates a writer to not just understanding the character, but understanding how how the machine works, like how to craft out these stories and how to make them think. Because again, to go back to the Dragon Ball example, that's Goku in a nutshell. Is Toriyama is as like much forgetful as he is, I think the one thing he's never forgot is he's never forgot how Goku works, like as a machine. And it's like, all right, Goku will always try to push forward and be stronger. That doesn't necessarily mean he has to win. What that means is I need to keep giving him new stimuli to get him there, and then he kind of tells the story himself, kind of thing. And I think the reason why Gohan maybe didn't work as a protag is he couldn't figure out what the engine for Gohan was in the same way. And I think that when you break it down into that and you look at some runs and you look at some stories, I feel like the Riddler example Ian gave. All right, so the Riddler is the conceit we've given, is the Riddler makes these riddles and we need to solve them. And he wants to be caught effectively because he's given you clues. He wants you to think that thing. So the conceit we have to give here is that there actually has to be something that Batman learns from these riddles. Like if you do a Riddler story where the riddle is just a complete nothing, at least doesn't lead to another riddle or something, you're not writing the Riddler, you're writing the Joker with a little less jokes at that point, you know? Like, there needs to be...
And that's why so often, you know, Riddler gets criticized for being Diet the Joker, right? Mm-hmm. Is when people don't comprehend how to do that for the character, they take half of the attribute but not the other. And then you get, you know, Diet Joker. And of course we get fucking Tom King, War of Jokes and Riddles, where we get the amazing Joker scene of like, oh... Well, I mean, he's the Riddler. Who cares about the Riddler?
I think
so meta.
I think part of the problem you have is you get characters who are so committed to a certain conceit or a certain story that it's hard to move past that and like explore deeper. Like, how many times are we gonna do Heart of Ice before we fucking decide to do something else with Mr. Freeze?
Oh, absolutely. Ra's al Ghul has that problem. Mr. Freeze has that problem. A lot of Batman rogues, yeah.
It's like Heart of Ice is good. Like, no one's saying it's bad or like a bad place to use the character, but like, that's all we ever do. Like, we don't push past it. And so we just, like, yeah, this character is only limited to this one, like, he wants to save his wife, because we never... And granted, a couple times we've tried to do it with Mr. Freeze. It's been kind of bad sometimes. So, I mean, fair. But, you know, that happens a lot where we don't... There's not a lot of really good attempts made to push past a certain attribute, and that just defines them forever.
Well, and I think...
Which is weird because, like, the conceit that Dini made for Nora Freeze, it's like... That could be you could easily make that work as an ongoing thing. I mean, I think it's a mistake that Dini and company kind of like immediately killed Nora Freeze, and kind of ruined it. And like they brought him back and they gave him a different motivation that I think worked a little bit better than anyone gives it credit for. But, like,
season 4, Mr. Freeze is kind of hype.
Yeah, when he just shows up and he's like, "Oh no, I am now just miserable and I am depression, the villain, and so I'm just gonna fuck everyone else's life over."
I actually do kind of like that too.
Like, that's a good take, but like even the original take of just, okay, well, he's a scientist and he's trying to cure his wife and he will do literally anything to make that happen. You know, just like if he saved Nora to the point where like all he needs to do is get these, you know, crazy schemes together to be able to cure her. Well, the state's not just gonna fucking kill her. Like, if she's just, you know, becomes property of the state, basically, is in that, like, fucking cryotube, and she's just always stuck like that, and the state's like, well, legally, you know, she is alive, and no one has the authority to kill her, so we have to leave her alive. And yet there's this crazy guy out there, and all he wants to do is steal her, commit horrible crimes in order to try to cure her, and so we can't let him do that. That works as like a conceit that could go on forever, but instead everyone keeps fucking with it and killing Nora Freeze.
Or they wake her up in a way that I can't stand, like in the fucking Arkham Knight DLC where she wakes up and knows who Batman is, and I'm just like, are you fucking with me right now? That's the stupidest thing you could have done. Anyways, tangent over.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think
Also, again,
though,
just reiterate. Depression Mr. Freeze is the better take anyway. They just should have stuck with it.
Oh, dude, it's so hype when he comes back and he's a fucking head and he's just like, I have nothing to live for anymore, so neither will you. So good.
Oh,
I love it.
Sorry, Steve.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just gonna say, to kind of turn around, because you mentioned the attributes being more of a DC problem. I think the thing Matt's honing in on with like being stuck in a take or being stuck in one story that we need to tell over and over again is more of a Marvel problem too. Like when you said that and you brought up Mr. Freeze, my brain immediately went to, oh yeah, this is Spider-Man all over. This is all fucking 60 years of Spider-Man comics where the conceit is he's a coming of age kid who gets superpowers and has to learn how to be responsible, but he can't ever actually learn how to be responsible or else the story's over. And so we just keep like rewinding the clock on him and getting him back to a specific point, only for him to relearn his lesson up to a point and then fall right back into that circle over and over again. And Marvel's got the luxury of, okay, you can tell that story of learning what responsibility is over the course of like 100 issues, and that takes you up for like 5 years, and that's fine. But then you do that for 50 plus years and it gets kind of monotonous and boring. And sometimes you luck out, sometimes you get Daredevil where like you get like 20 years and every comic is just a fucking banger, and even though it's the same thing over and over again. But 9 times out of 10 that's not what happens. Alfie and I were talking about this the other day, but like this is sort of the problem with Captain America. People are ranting and raving all over the place about United States of Captain America and how he goes on that speech about the American dream. But I'm here to tell you, as someone that has read like basically every Captain America comic, there are 3 Captain America stories and that's it. There are self-reflective, I need to figure out what the American dream is, road trips that he goes on because the world is fucked up. There are I can't be Captain America stories anymore, and there are Captain America is a man out of time and he hates the modern world stories. That's it. And we do those 3 stories ad nauseum on repeat cycles like clockwork. Every Captain America one is just those 3 stories.
Yeah, the other thing that came to mind for me is sometimes like these attributes are and like the idea of like the formula that they kind of lend themselves to kind of come into effect. And so if we're talking about Marvel doing this, the thing that comes to mind for me is the Incredible Hulk television series. Because, Steve, I know you and I have talked about it, where, like, it's a great show, like, legitimately, for a superhero show in the 70s, it's really, really good, but every episode is literally the exact same thing. It is absolutely 100% impossible to binge that series, because literally every episode is the same thing, and Bill Bixby's charming ass can only get you so far before you're just like, I know exactly, like, I am too aware of the formula. It's fucking Scooby-Doo. It's ridiculous.
It was the epitome of 70s television. It was everything 70s TV was doing at its height, where every episode is just like this perfect tight narrative of David Banner, because for some reason they thought the name Bruce sounded gay. David Banner comes into town, someone like screams for help, he gets involved, he warns them that he shouldn't get involved, he helps solve some sort of like town murder or something, turns into the Hulk, and the police are on his ass, and so he leaves. And that's every fucking episode, but every episode is good.
I will say,
like any episode out of context, fantastic.
Every
I would kill for a Hulk run like
story,
that.
But it's not the Hulk story I want to read every day.
Full honesty, if they just made a Hulk comic like that, I would 100% read it.
You know what's so funny about that you guys say Hulk, though? Is like, this is the most recent and probably the highest profile thing, is that we had Immortal Hulk, which was like, alright, everyone's kind of, we don't know how, Marvel doesn't know how to make the Hulk work anymore. Like, people can't tell that people just make the same Hulk story over and over and over again. Like, Bruce Banner and the Hulk, or Bruce Banner gets along with the Hulk, or like, it's just that endless cycle. So then the Chad, the absolute Sigma male, Al Ewing, comes out, and they're just like, all right, watch this, fuckers. Now it's a horror comic.
I was literally about to say, because, like, one thing that frustrates me is when, like, a character is known for an attribute in the general public that's really just not them or not interesting. Like people look at DCEU and they're like, oh, Wonder Woman, she's like the Thor, she's the she loves to fight and she's murder happy. It's like, that's not really Wonder Woman. So like Hulk was the same way. Like Hulk, I was just like, I don't really give a shit about Hulk. But then recently I actually did start reading Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? This is so good. This is not what I expected any like Hulk material to be.
You know what, Matt? Like, I'm sorry, if you want to continue your point, I'll let you finish.
No, that's it. It's just that, like, you, like, a certain take or certain attributes that are associated with characters in, like, the broader audience are, like, associated with them to such a degree that if you don't really care for that, or if that's not your cup of tea, that might dissuade you from checking out more of that character, even if more of that character is going to be very different than what you're seeing in like popular culture. And that was the experience I had when I started reading Immortal Hulk, and I was like, oh, this is like horrifying, and there's like some cosmic horror stuff going on in here too, and like, so I was just like, this is so fucking rad, and this is not what I expected at all. So like, I'm glad I was able to push past that, because I don't really give a shit about MCU Hulk, and that's really the only Hulk I knew until I read this.
So you've got that happen, but as we've established, as Steve has established, like with the Marvel thing, the cycle continues, because we've just got a couple of weeks ago, we got the synopsis for the next run after Al Ewing leaves Immortal Hulk, after the story ends. There's Donny Cates, and I got it up, just got to read it, because it's like, Bruce Banner and the Hulk never see eye to eye, but perhaps on the run from the military, can the scientist conquer the rage inside? Brand new from Johnny Cates comes. Like, it's just the same shit. We learn nothing. Like, it's back to back, like, once again.
I do also think though Marvel's also got some of those characters that kind of have like a one sentence pitch, and we've yet to kind of crack the formula for them, so we're not telling the same stories over and over again, and we kind of luck out in that way. Like, I think Doctor Doom is one of these characters where we just keep telling good Doctor Doom stories, and every Doctor Doom story tends to be a little different than every other Doctor Doom story, because we know how he works, but we haven't like broken that formula to an absurd degree the way we have with Hulk, and we haven't done it with, or like we did with Mr. Freeze. Chris Cantwell, who's writing United States of Captain America, Iron Man, and wrote a Doctor Doom book, said he has this interview where he's like, he wants to have like a one sentence pitch for what Doctor Doom is, and he says that Doctor Doom is both Dr. Frankenstein and the monster at the same time, and so like he's constantly under some kind of machinations, thinking that he has the best intentions at heart, but he is also the monster, which means he's also just full of rage and envy and jealousy at everyone else, and also at himself. And so like you throw that into any situation and it creates a bonkers ass story, and it almost always works.
You mentioned Doom, Ian. If you want to go ahead, I don't want to take up.
No, I was just not like in agreement.
You bring up a good point with Doom there that makes me kind of want to ask you guys this. So like, the reason why Doctor Doom is just a perfect character ties into what, if I had to break it down into a thing, is like Doctor Doom is the messiah of the world. He's just too paid to do it. Like, Doctor Doom is the savior of the universe, but he just had a really bad college experience with one fucking guy, and he will never let it go. Never. It exists, and it rules his life. The reason why that works, and I feel like something like Mr. Freeze doesn't, and this might fake out. Do you feel like the attribute is, the easier it is for like a long-running narrative to work with? Because with Mr. Freeze, the problem we have is it's so specific. It's such a this one goal that needs to be accomplished, and until we get it done, we're kind of treading water. Like Ra's al Ghul was very much the same. It's like this one goal that needs to be accomplished and very specific. Whereas someone like Doctor Doom or like the Joker or Lex Luthor or even like Batman and Superman, who like, what does Batman want? To stop all crime. Well, that's covers a pretty wide fucking net. like there's a pretty wide thing to cover there. Like, what does the Joker want? I don't fucking know. He doesn't fucking know. And there you go. There's the story. You can cover. You can have him drop in any way you want to go. Lex Luthor wants to kill Superman. All right. How do you fucking kill Superman? There's a lot of ways you go there. Like, there's like a lot of fucking. So like, I think. Do you think that the vagueness of it helps, or do you think there's some cases where being hyper-specific about what this character is about can actually help them?
Well, I don't think it's a vague thing, right? Like, I don't think it's a matter of, like, being super vague and so you can do anything, or a matter of being hyper-specific so you only tell one story. I think it's a difference between what the character wants and what the character's motivations are can sometimes get kind of screwed up with each other. So, like, Mr. Freeze wants to save Nora Freeze. And that's a goal, but that goal is one story, and that's what stories are, is that they're very goal-oriented. But motives are things that you can drop into any context, and the story becomes, how does this motive get accomplished in the context you're throwing it in? And so, like, I don't think you need to be vague or even hyper-specific. I think you need something that's functional insofar as, if this was the kind of person you are, how do you navigate whatever world you're thrown into? So, like, Batman's motivation is he's going to spend the rest of his life warring on all criminals. That's a pretty well-established motivation of like what he wants to do, and it doesn't matter if he's rich or poor or black or white or a man or a woman or bad family or no bad family. At the end of the day, he's a character whose purpose is war on all criminals, and that's all he does. Doctor Doom is very similar, where he is entirely oriented around saving the world around his very specific idea of what that means. And if you can crack that, if you can say, like, this is the framework the character sees the world through, then it doesn't matter what the world is. It's always going to come back to how it gets filtered into this one motive.
Yeah, I think that's why you get, like, that's why it's so easy to tell, like, lots of different, like, Scarecrow stories. Like, Scarecrow, he wants to understand fear. That's all he wants. That is his goal in life. And it's very easy to say, well, this week he's going to try to do that by doing this horrible experiment, and this week he's going to try to do it by doing this thing. And so it like, that's a motivation and a goal that leads to just very easy longevity, because there's so many different routes you can take to do that.
Yeah. It's a topic which we can take in pretty much any way possible. I guess another thing I want to ask: do you guys have any favorite examples of, like, this attribute gets turned into a character? Like, we wanted to make someone fast, so we made the Flash. Are there any, like, ideas of a character that you just think the basic premise of it is really cool, even if the character themselves in execution doesn't quite live up to what you'd want them to be?
Spider's Man count?
Yeah, I mean, I think his execution's pretty great.
I mean, like, but he's just, like, they haven't done much with him, but, you know, sadly. Like, I you know what, Alfie, throw out my Zorro script. We're doing my Spider's Man one-shot. Like, I fucking got this. I've got, like,
worst comic book writer already is he's thrown out 2 script ideas.
No, it just means you're the worst artist because you haven't finished them yet. Like, I could easily do 17 billion script ideas, but I know you're going to limit me to 1. No, but like Spider's Man is a kooky one. You know, if we're talking about, like, one particular thing, let's turn that into a character. We've had this conversation. Pick a sexual fetish, turn it into a character. You've created a Wonder Woman villain.
Or a James Tynion the Fourth Batman run character.
Oof. Shots fired. See, James Tynion the Fourth just needs to write Wonder Woman, then he'll be fine. Like, he'd be great at it. Punchline would be a great Wonder Woman villain. See? Yeah, man. Anyway, But like as far as like actual characters that have like a lot of depth and pathos to them, besides, you know, Giganta sticking the atom in her boobs, I don't know, like there's got to be something, but like you put me on the spot with it, and I have a harder time kind of coming to terms with it. Someone recently left a comment on one of my old Trade Talk episodes about a book called Journey, Jirni, and it was like, okay, djinns and magic lamps and all that stuff. Let's just do that. And I'm like, oh man, I really love the concept. Just genies as like the plot for a book, and the main character's like half genie, half human. Yes, I'm here for it. And I'm like, oh no, but it's just all boobs. Like, that's all it is just boobs. And I want to like it, but it's all just boobs. And I like boobs, but it's just all boobs. It's like too much of a good thing, man. Damn.
Wait,
What was the name of that comic?
Jirni. If you like. Here, hold on. Let me pull it up. I won't do this because I'm lazy for the edit, but like I'll post an image, and anyone listening at home can like look up Journey on their own. And I'm just random very first Google result. Here we go, boys. We ready? We ready? Mm-hmm. In the Discord. There you go. Very first Google result. And it's just that's the whole fucking book. And like I'm used to it with comics because it's comics, you know, like of course, but it's just the entire fucking series.
Oh man. The art style kind of looks up my fucking alley, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, the art style. Oh, the shading is just so good.
That plot's looking pretty heavy.
No, it's got that like Joe Madureira like fucking super cartoony
it's got that
shit.
Voluptuous, you know, kind of hefty, plump line work.
Fucking...
and that just want to get my hands on that fucking colour and like just
Yep. Like I mean, it's funny because Alfie always makes fun of me for being like extra horny, and I always make fun of him for being like just so Britishly like no, humans don't have sex. But like this just makes me like a little uncomfortable because they draw her like that even when the character's like 13, and I'm like,
Oh god.
Yeah, it's I mean, I guess if I'm being generous to it, it is an independent comic trying to like sell, you know. So they kind of gotta use every dirty trick they know. But it's just, it's like I'm just like, yeah, fucking genies, let's go, that's awesome. And then it's like, oh, it's one of these books. It's like those fucking grim fairy tale books where it's like, okay, how can we make fucking Little Bo Peep sexy?
I feel like there's a lot of like. I'm blanking on specifics. I feel like there's probably a lot of X-Men characters that are like that just like are their power, and I'm just like, I like the X-Men a lot, but like I feel like there are just some characters that are just like, they're not really characters, they're just, this mutant can do this, and that's their whole thing, and that's it. And a lot of those powers are cool, but it's just like, okay, well, what about that? But I'm struggling to think of specifics because I haven't actually been reading a lot of X-Men lately. But
I like Beast. I guess he's kind of on those lines of like he's like the monster looking guy, but he's like all super intelligent, and like that's just his thing. Those are his attributes. On his D&D sheet, he rolled a 10 or a 20 for intelligence, and you know, I like Beast because of that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good point. I guess, yeah, just who is the character you were just obsessed with as a kid because you locked on to like that one specific thing, right?
Wolverine, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. That's all I got.
Oh. Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, is there anything else we wanted to talk about? Alfie, did you have one? Steve, did you have one of characters that are, like, the go-to for you?
Just in terms of, like, attribute?
Yeah, like, I really like Alfie's question earlier that
yeah.
I distracted from with my talk of Journey's fucking brick house tits.
I mean, for me, there's a few where I feel like I really enjoy this concept, and that's the primary reason for reading the book. So, like, Daredevil is one where, like, he's the man without fear, and every Daredevil comic is about what it means to be the man without fear on a certain level. There's that fucking baller line in the middle of Daredevil Born Again where Kingpin's like, and a man without fear is a man without hope. And the next issue opens and he's just like pathetically crying on the bed and it's got no life and no home and no friends and no family. And it just goes downhill. And then Mark Waid's entire run on Daredevil is just an examination of like what does it mean to like overcome fear in like a really multitude of ways. Everything from like your worst fears coming true about yourself all the way up to like your worst fears coming true for your friends and all of that, like Foggy getting cancer and everything. So I love that. More recently though, primarily because of DVDC, I think, just because of conversations with you two, I've like really grown to just love the concept behind Nightwing. Like I was never like the biggest Nightwing stan of all time, but I feel like I've almost become a massive Nightwing stan over the last
Steve,
year.
your profile picture has you wearing a Nightwing shirt.
I know, like it's really strange because when I was a kid, I didn't particularly care about Dick Grayson, but like as I got older and the more I realized, like, oh, Dick Grayson's the kid that turned out right. He's the kid that like learned all the lessons and grew up and became awesome and was not a troublemaker, did not have problems, and just like internalized all the good shit. And Tim Seeley had that great run at an early Rebirth, where like the whole idea was just Nightwing exists because he recognizes that the entire world is basically like living without a safety net, and Nightwing wants to be the safety net for people. And I just fucking love that concept that he gets his name from Superman because he just wants to catch people when they fall. I fucking love it. It's so optimistic.
For me,
Cool.
the one that really comes to mind is just this character is just and Morrison's like so good at just this is a concept and I'm just like throw it away basically, just one issue or two issues and then never touch it again, and then I'm just chomping at the bit to use the wall, but no one else in comics ever wants to use them. I'm like, you idiots! Zanu the Phantom Killer! Like, I shout at the top of my lungs. But my favorite one of those is in Batman, the Black Glove. I love Al Sombrero. Just the idea of so supervillains make death traps, all right? And then we're like, all right, what if like you're not good at engineering, but you're a supervillain? So like, you gotta commission that shit. He's the commission artist for death traps. Like that's his only thing. Is he's got no personality whatsoever. He just wears a fucking sombrero and has a fucking cool ass mask, and he's in a suit, and he's just like, yeah, I have no personal things. This is just my art. This is just my commission list. You can get my price sheet. You can talk about I'll make a death trap. Like, you want something a little bit more acid-based, you want to get some animals in there. It's going to cost you because we've got to get the training fees. But I take good care of them. Like, it's humanitarian. Those sharks with laser beams will be well fed. Like, I just love that
Bones
fucking
crushing,
guy.
flesh mushing.
That guy's
It's the dirt nut.
He's just the fuck. Like, he's that guy though. He's like, Music Monster probably commissioned that shit. He probably hired him out. Like, it's just.
Yeah, he probably did, man.
It's my favorite bit character.
Music Meister's another good, like, gimmick character, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like, Al Sombrero
Like-
absolutely needs to, like, show up in more shit as just, like, a background dude. Like, he's so fun as a concept.
Just, Alfie, you know what you do? You know what you do with all the work you've been doing on art and stuff? Just, like, go through just comics and just start, like, putting El Sombrero just, like, working in the background on something. Just anytime, like the villain's talking to his subordinates, like, coming up with, like, a plan, and later in the story there's a fucking death trap. You just put some El Sombrero in there at some point.
Like a panel,
and he's he's just in the background working. It's like, boss, who's that guy? Oh, no, don't bother him. He's doing something really important right now. You know, like, just like, I flash back to when I first started working at my current job, and they were having some building work done to expand the production department, and we had a whole fucking company-wide meeting about don't bother the construction people, don't go talk to them, don't go, like, stick your head in to see what's going on, don't do any of that, because we want to make sure that it doesn't interrupt our work, and we want to make sure we don't interrupt their work. And I'm like, this was within like the first 3 months of working there. I'm like, what the fuck kind of company is this where like this has to be said? Sorry. That's nothing to do with anything else. It just reminded me of it. It is funny.
Damn, that Fort Wayne Mafia.
I know. It's like, don't bother the construction workers. I'm like,
They got a job
do I get a
to do.
juice box if I don't? Do I get a juice box for not bothering the construction workers? Because that's what this feels like. Anyway, yeah, just stuff. Anyway, all right. We got anything else? We want to wrap up. Are we done?
Yeah, I think
We over?
I'm pretty happy with this. I think we covered basically everything we needed to go for.
All right. You know, actually, I want to do one thing. Everybody invent a one-note character. Okay? That's the challenge to you. Everyone, and you in the comments, go write down, invent your one-note character. I'll go first. I want a character who's just, like, obsessed with Legos to an unhealthy degree. And, like, that's just their thing. Because, like, legitimately, a drug dealer at one point accepted Legos as, like, a form of payment. And I want to do that, but, like, for a supervillain. Like, he's doing things just to buy Legos. That's what I want. He's doing Lego-themed crimes. Alfie,
all right,
do
all
it.
Right.
Do it. Use
I'm
that big, beautiful
all right.
brain of
So
yours.
here's my pitch, just on the spot. A event book junkie. So someone who only shows up when they know some shit is about to go down. There's gonna be a monthly wide crossover. And they get off to it. Like they live for the crisis. They live for the fucking secret invasion. Like they don't. It's like, oh yeah, well, like, you know, I was really hyped when the Fantastic Four showed up and everything, but then like they just kind of gets like these adventures that just kept going off. So I don't really care. But like, man, when this shit starts popping off, that's when I want to come in. Like the whole gimmick is like that maybe that power is like tied to like how much energy is being unveiled into the multiverse at the specific time, so they get stronger when more shit is going on. So like when the anti-monitor's around, it boosts them up as a result. So and then the plot becomes like maybe they start like instigating it. So they start like, hey, you know, what if I fucking pissed off Doctor Doom and Galactus and just had those fuckers just fight? That'd be an event. And it's like that shit. That's why one note supervillain is the event junkie.
Steve, give us a one-note character.
All right. So how about you have this Lex Luthor type character who's super rich, but he got super rich because every time a superhero shows up, he trademarks their costume and logo and name and just sells all of their merchandise without cutting them in at all. So like he just runs around and like follows the Teen Titans or goes searching through Justice League files or like talks to police officers. And he's like, oh, you got a new costume? What did it look like? Okay, I'm gonna go copyright that real quick and just make money off of every superhero name and redesign possible. So like fucking Tim Drake shows up one day dressed as Drake, and now Drake is now a copyrighted thing that this dude sells merch of.
Dude, you know who would be like the best character to put him like on panel against as the villain?
Who?
Fucking Booster Gold.
Yes, he's the anti-booster.
Oh, it's good shit. It's good shit. How about Matt? What you got?
I want a character who's like we have a lot of characters who are like masters of a certain weapon. Like this character is a master of the bow, and this character is like a master of the sword. I want a character who's like a master of like, I don't know, like really shitty weapons that no one uses because they suck. Or like a guy who's like Deadshot, like really good at what he does, but instead of like guns, it's like grenades and shit. Like a guy who's really good with specifically anything that explodes. That's what I want.
Okay, all right. trying to think of like a really shitty weapon to be good with.
Yeah, like I want to see someone.
Yeah,
who's
Master
like
of the
really
Blow Dart.
good, like really good at some obscure shitty weapon that even at its deadliest is not that deadly.
Master of the paper cut. Yes, there you go. Fucking like I can give anyone a paper cut. Doesn't matter how thick the skin is or how flimsy the paper. I've got this.
Get like paper cut true form dark side on like an outerversal level, but like it's like, alright, I'm just gonna be here a while.
Oh man. Alright, good. Okay, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, putting you on the spot twice now. What's gonna be our topic for next week?
Review topic or discussion topic?
Review topic.
We will be reading the first 4 issues of Spencer and Locke.
Okay, I have no idea what that is. Is that DC? Is it?
It's a comic book.
Okay. Who publishes? Is I guess my more broad question.
I believe it's Indie, I think, or who actually published this?
Okay.
Action Lab. I don't know who.
Okay.
It's an indie
So-
comic, but we're gonna read it. It's if Calvin and Hobbes grew up and were detectives.
Sounds good. All right. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed.
I'm the Sonic Erotica lover.
And I am Steve.
Those are our intrinsic
And-
attributes.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.